Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Into 99 podcast, where we've got 99 cards, because Commander is number one. I am your Necromancer,
Mancer!
with all the answers,
Answers!
Nekrozach, and I am joined by Brian, Benson, and Lotus. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, delightful, my dude. How are you?
I am so much better now that I get to spend time with you guys. One of my favorite parts of the week, for sure. So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about
I'm doing all right. I'm doing good.
Oh, hey, Brian. Brian's with us this week. Forgot. Sorry.
So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about an old legendary creature for a deck tech, and what I think is a unique take on it. But first, we got some house cleaning to do. Brian, you want to do some house cleaning?
Sure.
House cleaning. Sorry, I'll get.
I like this. I like this. This new sound effects that we have. Even without you don't have that button. Benson, you're doing a great job filling in.
I have all the buttons. I have all the power.
Yeah. So basically, want to say thank you to all our listeners and everything like that. And to also make sure to check out all our other channels. Zach, you pitch your stuff, and then we'll let Lotus go into hers. I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, well, since Benson and I share a show, I'll let Benson pitch the other thing because he's a better hype man than I. But you can check out our streams every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. EST, and I also have one episode of a series I am trying very hard to keep going, which is What's in the Box, where I interview different people in the Commander community and just, talk to them, learn about them, try to get them to fall in love with me, that kind of stuff. Lotus, you want to tell us what you got going on?
Yeah, so every Saturday afternoon, I do Brewing It Live with Han, where we brew a commander deck from scratch with chat, which is 4 p.m. EST, 2 p.m. MST, or 8 p.m. GMT. And then the recordings come out on a Monday on our YouTube channel.
Would you say it's interactive deck building?
Definitely. The chat builds most of it.
I'm
just there for the ride.
You guys think I'm just like the meme lord in chat, but when I suggest Wall of Blood and Death Shadow so that you can have a turn 2 12/12, I'm serious. And you guys think I'm just joking around.
Benson, what do you got for us?
Well, we have on no particular schedule. It's very, very random. Parallel Thoughts, where Zach and I, we have zero synergy when we brew together. So we brew better apart. And then we slap it together in one deck and hope it works. But if it doesn't, I'm probably not building it. He built a couple.
I have. Benson likes to sandbag me. Last week's episode was a very, very good indication of that. And you'll get to hear it very soon.
Yeah, it's just because we brew apart. So it just so happened that my deck ended up being phenomenal and his half was just support.
I actually wasn't there for that one, so it's going to be interesting to hear that
man.
after. But yeah,
Brian...
also a big announcement is that you're able to get all of this on the podcast as well. We're going to be releasing all of the Brewing It Live, or we have been. They've been coming out, I believe, either on the Wednesdays or on the Fridays, all depending upon our lineup, as well as Brewing It Live. Parallel Thoughts is going to be having their debut on the podcast next week on Wednesday.
And the reason why Parallel Thoughts came about to come onto the podcast is because of numerous complaints of my physical appearance.
Benson is just too attractive for video, so we have to move the audio so you guys can pay attention to what's going on.
Is that why the mic obscures most of the camera?
Yes.
You look like that guy for... What's that program? Home program with a guy with a fence and all you see is his eyes.
Guy with the fence.
Home Improvement.
Moving on.
So yeah, take us into this deck there. I think we've done our. Nope.
I had one more thing I was going to say. So you can also, big shout out to all of our Patreons. We've been doing something new, which is our Instant 99 after hours. So what we like to do is we have our episode, and then we continue on the conversation in our Patreon. So if you like the content you're already getting, but want even more with a little bit no filter, you can check it out on on the Patreon. Now,
Patron into the 99. Okay, I got it all out of my system. I got it all out of the system. We can continue.
All right,
with the
so
actual...
with Modern Horizons 2 on the brains of every person here,
on the horizon. I'm sorry.
I was trying so hard not to say that. Thank you for ruining that for me. I decided I was going to do a Gris deck tech, but then changed my mind last minute, and we're doing a different deck tech. And today we're going to be talking about my Ertai the Corrupted deck. Ertai is one of the 4 Phyrexian decks that I built around over the last couple weeks, and I really like this list, so I wanted to kind of show it off. So Ertai the Corrupted, for anyone who doesn't know, is 2 white, blue, and a black for a wizard legend. I'm sure his creature type has been errated, but I'm just going off of the card in front of me. It's a 3/4, and you can pay blue and tap Ertai. You sacrifice a creature or enchantment to counter target spell. A lot of the lists that I saw for this deck were very stacks heavy and very enchantment heavy, and those aren't things I really like to do. That's more of like someone else in our playgroup's play style. That's not really a Zach thing. But any necromancer worth their salt will tell you there are 2 things you're looking for when doing any kind of graveyard play. That's the best creatures to reanimate, and the best way to sacrifice them for value to reanimate them. And what better way to do that than to sacrifice a big old fatty to counter someone's spell?
And I came into this hoping that we were going to do a different deck tech. I really like the way that this deck is laid out, but I really wanted to do the Asmarano Mardica Diastina Kuldakar. That's what I wanted to do.
You mean Audrey?
Yeah. No, I mean Asmarano Mardica Diastina Kuldakar.
As much as I want to...
Asmarano Mardica Diastina Kuldakar.
Say it back. Say it backwards.
3 times fast.
No.
As much as I want to brew that deck, I can't say the name, therefore I'm not going to do
Asmarano Mardica Diastina Kuldakar.
Audrey.
Yeah, you can just go with Lotus's suggestion for the name. That'd be
Tina,
the easier one.
So, a PSA for this deck, we are... Obviously, it's a Reanimator deck. There aren't very many, for some reason, Esper Reanimators running around, so I was already very excited to build this in kind of like a unique take. But the PSA is, if you're following along with our link tree below, you'll see the link for the deck in the description. You might see the cost of the deck being upwards of $4,000.
$4,557 at this point.
In no way, shape, or fashion should you ever spend this much money on a deck. The
Don't
single
tell people
reason
how
this
to spend their money.
I am going to, because you could buy Modern Horizon boxes instead. The single reason why this deck is so expensive is this card right here. It's Bizarre Baghdad. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a land out of Arabian Nights, so it is on the reserve list. It's never been printed more than once, and it is on its own $4,199.99. There's a wall of text on it, but literally you tap it to draw 2, discard 3. There are quite a few proxies in this deck because my good buddies Jim from Pyrexia and Cabal Coffees have hooked me up with a couple cards, and I want to play them. I'm never going to afford a Bizarre Baghdad, but as a proxy, I'm going to use it.
I think in that manner,
with that being...
the only way to get it would be to afford it would be to find out what LGS has it, pay that gas money, buy some sort of tool that will break glass, and then a good pair of running shoes so that you could just steal it and hope to God that you don't get caught.
I don't believe that is good.
I'm just saying the only way to, in my opinion, right? This is, this does not reflect the rest of the podcast clearly, just by the reaction here. But I'm just saying the only way that I would be able to afford that would be to cut costs and buy running shoes, a crowbar, and some gas money, and
And this is where I throw over the in no way or shape does Into the 99 condone
I already said
stealing.
that. I covered it for you. Don't worry. This is all on me. Some gnarly cards at Instagram. So
So I'm very pro proxy, but as just kind of a disclaimer to that, it is your responsibility as the person proxying cards to not only communicate with your play group that you are playing with proxy cards, but b make sure what you're proxying is within the like realms of the conversation, because as players it is our responsibility to not only ensure that the table is having the same kind of play experience, but you all have had the conversation that this is the play experience we're expecting. Bazaar doesn't do anything super crazy in this deck. I just had one, so it's in here. Now with all that out of the way and me soapboxing for you guys, we're going to get into this deck tech. So Ertai. We're wanting to get Ertai down, get big fatties out of our graveyard as quickly as possible, sacrifice them, do it again. So we're playing some pretty bad cards, but we're also playing some pretty neat cards. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about my favorite section, which is going to be the Reanimate section. These are going to be cards that are going to either put creatures from your graveyard back onto the battlefield, or put cards from your graveyard into your hand. Namely, they're all pretty much going to put cards from the battlefield or graveyard onto the battlefield, either our creatures or someone else's creatures.
Taking a look at the list, I already see one of my favorite cards in there.
I think
Very
I know what it
happy.
is. Stop me if we get to it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in there.
All right, so the first card we're going to talk about is a Dark Art Valkyrie. It's 4 white white for a snow creature, angel, so snow creature. Kind of viable and relevant in this format anymore. It's a 4/5 with flying and vigilance, and then you can tap a Dark Art Valkyrie. When target creature other than a Dark Art Valkyrie is put into a graveyard this turn, return that card to play under your control.
I have to say, this angel looks more like a mermaid with wings.
Yeah, it's a very interesting design space for an angel. Um, but this is a pretty interesting card. Like, it having flying and vigilance means that it is a good attacker, a blocker, and we still get the ability to use its ability whenever we kind of feel like it. And it's not just our creatures; it's whenever a creature we put into a graveyard. So you can set up some really neat synergies where someone's playing something that you don't like them to have, but you want it, so you can kill it and bring it back. Pretty fun.
Okay, so now we hit two things: reanimate and steal.
You know what I'm about. We've been doing this long enough. Next
I
card
don't
on the
know.
list.
I still think banding should be in there.
That is a Lotus thing. I don't understand it, therefore I can't use it because I can't explain it. It's like when I argue with my wife. I can't argue very well, so I don't do it. Um, Next card is Animate Dead. It's 1 in a black for an enchantment aura. All right, so this card literally has a paragraph on it, and I don't want to read it. So I'm just going to
give
give
us
you
the
this
short notes.
I'll
Yeah.
give you Sparks notes. Here we go. You can enchant a creature card in a graveyard. That's really important. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you enchant that creature, you pull the creature out of the graveyard. If Animate Dead was to leave the battlefield, you sacrifice that creature. Enchanted creature gets -1, -0. I don't know why they haven't found a better way to word this card. I don't know if it's because of certain rulings. I don't know. But
Judge, any word from the judge on this one? What?
It just works the way it works.
and you know what?
There we have
I-
it.
Fine
That's-
with that.
I've tried to explain to Zach how banding works, how horsemanship works, how everything along those lines works. It has to do
Look.
it with the way it interacts and how it targets.
You
as
know
well,
what?
So.
Magic
The
needs
issue with
for
banding
the
and
Oracle
horse-
text. Magic needs like a children's book writer. You know, just like, hey, we have these rules. How would you lay that out so that like, you know, like a 5-year-old could read it, and then if whatever.
Oh, that was my job in the past. I could easily dumb stuff down. Pick me.
Well, that's Animate Dead. It's sweet. Play it. Next card we're moving on to is Ameria Shepherd. It's 5 white white for a creature angel with flying. It's a 4/4 and it has landfall. So whenever a land ETB is under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is one of those cards that is going to bring cards from our graveyard to our hand, Or if it's a plains card, you may return target non-land permanent card to the battlefield instead. So we're in Esper. We have a couple ways to actually trigger landfall outside of just the traditional play in a land. So we'll get some pretty decent mileage out of Ameria Shepherd.
I really like this one. I even had it in my my Savala deck in one of my first iterations because it's non-land card, so I can bring
Hmm.
back enchantments or artifacts, whatever I need to keep my deck steaming along.
And there's a lot of really interesting cards that like I was excited to play in this deck. I don't know that it's necessarily what I would consider optimal cards, but they're cards that I really wanted to play. They just seemed like fun to me, you know. Does someone want to take this next card?
Is this like I'd say like okay, I've been calling out art a lot, but this is really neat looking art to it. I like the dark shading in the background and then the guy's face in the forefront. But this is Limdal the Necromancer. It's 5 and 2 black, legendary creature, human wizard. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play, you may pay 1 and a black. If you do, return that card to the play under your control. If it's a creature, it's a zombie in addition to its other creature types, and then you can pay 1 and a black to regenerate target zombie. So it's almost like a different, way more expensive Scarab God, kind of, but you have to do it as they're dying.
It reminds me a lot of Nim Deathmantle. It functions kind of similarly, but I like that it's on a creature. So I never want to pay like 7 for this, right? 7 for a 4/4, even with what its ability does, is a pretty bad rate. But we're playing Reanimator, guys. I'm looking at this being a 3 to 5 drop max. Which even at 5, if this was at 5, I would still, that'd be fine. But
That's
yeah,
within the
so
limits of playing it.
yeah, so Limdol is just another card that lets me do what I like, you know, my top 3 things to do. And it's just a fun creature. Like you don't typically see this ran a lot because it is on the higher side of CMC. But we're playing Reanimator, so who really cares? Lotus, you're a judge. Do you want to read this next card?
I think I need a magnifying glass for this one.
That was like the card I tried to read last week.
Yeah.
Two
before.
colorless and a black
you
for
can
necromancy. Enchantment. You may choose to play necromancy as an instant. If you do, bury it at the end of turn. When you play necromancy, it is small. Oh god. Choose target creature card in any graveyard. When necromancy comes into play, that creature comes into play as though it were just played and targets that creature. If necromancy leaves play, bury that creature. We got there.
I don't know why both Necromancy and Animate Dead need the wall of text that it has. Just know you can play this as an instant. If you do, you have to sacrifice Necromancy and the creature it enchanted at the end of the turn. And it's any graveyard, so it's
And I think
sweet.
I've mentioned before that this is like the creepiest art. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to. I know that's not a shrunken head, but I want to believe it's a shrunken head, right?
Reminds me of Beetlejuice.
I think I'm most impressed about like the accurate finger length in the top of the art there. Like it's really hard to draw a hand, and Pete, you nailed it.
So this section is called Reanimate, so I wouldn't be a Necromancer worth any of my salt if I wasn't playing Reanimate, the namesake card. It's 1 black for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value.
Ugh,
CMC.
CMC, please.
And then I guess I'm gonna take these next two because
That's
I have
fine.
to point out, Zach, that you corrected me the last time when I was talking about white with Reanimate, and you said no, that is Resurrection. So that is what our next card is. Resurrection is 2 and 2 white, and it's return. It's a sorcery, and it's return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And I wanted to take it because I was like, okay, I didn't actually know there was a card called Resurrection, but now it's in my brain. I know.
Something that people don't realize is like black isn't the only color that reanimates, but black is the only color that reanimates cheaply, whereas white will reanimate with resurrection spells with no downside. So it costs more, but you just get the creature back at face value.
And then this is one of my favorite cards. This card I've do you know what? Like I'll be honest. It probably hard to know that my very first decks that I actually built were Reanimator decks.
No, that
when
makes
I
sense.
when I played in 60
I would
card.
have
I know,
liked you
right?
better back
Compared to
then.
what I currently play. But the next card that I love is Ray of the Dawnbringer. This was one of the cards that I had in my Reanimator deck. Get it back out, probably turn 3 or 4, and then just start playing everything out of my graveyard. And it's 6 and 3 white, legendary creature angel, and it has flying. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Love it. It's
So,
expensive, but I love it.
something for our visual, like our people watching at home. This is the Ray of Dawnbringer I have. This was one of the first times this was the first card I was introduced to as far as like promos, and I'm super bummed that Magic doesn't do promos like this anymore with the interesting foiling. Like we get all these cool things, but I'd like to go back to like the foiling like that and like the Lorwyn promos. But yeah, so Ray of Dawnbringer. Once again, we are typically never going to pay 9 mana for that creature. No way.
You're too cheap.
hmm um, next card is the black version of Resurrection, which is Rise from the Grave. 4 and a black. Sorcery. Put target creature card in a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other types.
Buddy looks
Um,
like he had better days.
for sure. This is another card, like I said, like black can do it cheaper, but what's nice about this is there's no muss, no fuss. You literally can get whatever creature card from a graveyard, and the zombie typing in addition is pretty relevant when we have some other things in this deck that cares about zombies. So Rise from the Grave,
Well,
sweet.
limb death mantle guy or limb
Limb
the
duel.
necromancer. Yeah, limb. You know limb. He regenerates all the zombies, right? So that's perfect. Like you want your zombies. It
This
makes
next card, aside from the card Parallel Thoughts, this next card describes Zach and I's our builds when the episode is done. This is stitched together for 2 black. It's the sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or Threshold. Return that card from your graveyard to the battlefield instead of 7 or more cards are in your graveyard.
So you're saying that if your decks don't gel together, you guys forcibly make them work?
Yep.
Yes.
And even if they don't work, we jam them
100%.
together.
Lotus, you want to take this next card?
Sure. Burial Rites, 4 and a black sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or flashback for 3 and a white. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, but exile it afterwards.
Nothing quite like a twofer, right? And the final card in our Reanimate section is Victimize. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Absolutely insane value for this guy right here. So we went over now like my reanimation spells. Let's talk about some of the targets in my creature section.
I do have to ask though. Looking at that art for Victimize, what do we think's going on there? If he moves too much, is that thing that's at the top of the card on a drop on him?
They're 100% being sacrificed to some kind of ritual.
I thought it was an elaborate way
easily.
to give someone a haircut.
I thought this is where Saw got their ideas from.
Do you want to play Magic?
Any input, Lotus? You're a judge.
I'm not judging that one. Never
Alright,
get between a cultist and their prey.
Hey, I
I
that's
want
what I
to
like
know
about
what
you.
era
You gets it.
this is happening because he's got some torn pants, and I know that like torn pants were pretty in the early 2000s. So like,
It's something tells me it's not the
No?
early
Okay.
2000s, but all right, creatures, boom.
No one uses the rocks on the flooring anymore.
First creature in my list is Baneslayer Angel, 3 black for a 5/5 angel, flying, first strike, lifelink, and protection from demons and dragons. This is kind of a pet card for me. It's really good for what it does anyways, but anytime I'm playing white and I care about creatures, I just throw Baneslayer Angel in. When people see kind of what we're doing, having the lifelink is actually really relevant. And with dragons and demons kind of everywhere and changelings everywhere right now, this is actually kind of good.
no kidding. The next card, I don't like having it played against me in the slightest. But we have Burrell, Chief of Compliance, for 1 colorless and a blue for legendary creature, human wizard. Is that relevant? Not relevant. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Oh, and he's a 1/3.
So the creature typing is not relevant. The power token is not relevant. Everything else the card does is relevant. All of our giant, reanimation spells are cheaper, but with our commander's ability, being able to sacrifice a creature, counter a spell, and then draw a card and discard a card, we're getting to have some card advantage. We're getting to fill our graveyard, which is typically what we want to do, and we're getting to do it for cheaper than other people.
I'm gonna call dibs on this next card because the art reminds me of one of my favorite shows, Game of Thrones.
Go ahead, Brian.
The wall in the back, it reminds me of like the pillars with all the faces on it from Game of Thrones. So we got body double. It's 4 and a blue. Too expensive, Zach. We need cheaper. Free. But it's a shapeshifter, and you may have body double enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard. So they're skinning faces off of dead things. I get it.
I enjoy this art much more than I think.
Yeah, Lotus, it doesn't seem good.
I enjoy this art much more than the I think first printing out of Time Spiral, or not Time Spiral, but Future. It was one of those Planar Chaos, maybe.
I have to ask: is that a guy's like bearded face hanging from the ceiling?
I don't know.
Yes.
At first, I was like,
just
"Is it a
imagine-
heart?" I was like, "What is it?"
I don't know, guys. It's weird. I just like it. It clones.
And you can kind of tell that they've gotten better and better at it over time, because in the background, no one's got their facial hair, and in the foreground there, you can just see that, they're getting better cut lines. They're getting the.
Well, there's even a Murloc down in like the bottom left-hand corner.
I thought that was an Atog.
and I think a lion's
that's an
face at the
Atog.
elbow.
Anyway, good job, Buddy Double. Doing
Yeah.
good work.
Good
Do
hunting
you
out
have
there.
to do a disclaimer that I just said someone carving off faces is doing good work? Do you have to plug that one in there?
Oh, no, I
okay.
agreed with you. So yeah. Okay, so Into the 99 does not condone
The skinning of faces.
face.
And you
Moving
guys
on.
wanted me on this
Fate-
episode, you wild bunch.
Fate Stitcher, 3 and a blue for a 1/2 zombie wizard. You can tap Fate Stitcher, and you may tap or untap target permanent, and it has unearth for 1 blue. This is mainly just in here to untap Ertai whenever we kind of feel like it. That's really my only reason. I'm sure there are some cheeky blocks and stuff you can do, but I just want to untap Ertai. The next card is Guile. It's 3 and triple blue for a 6/6 elemental incarnation. Guile can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Excuse me. If a spell or ability you control would counter a spell, instead exile that spell, and you may play that card without paying its mana cost. When Guile is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. So you can see why we would kind of want Guile in a deck like this. We can basically just steal people's whatever.
They're whatever.
It's pretty good. Being a 6/6 and having this triple menace, I don't know, or double menace. I don't know how you want to word it. Also, very relevant.
Double
Yes,
Menace.
Unfortunately, we can't reanimate this. Well, no, I guess we could, like, with its ability on the stack, if we flash, like, Necromancy in, we could, but
Very situational.
you don't really want to do some. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It just being able to be thrown away with no downside is actually kind of cool. So,
Magister Sphinx.
someone wanted, yeah.
4 colorless and Esper. Artifact creature Sphinx. Is that relevant? No. Okay, flying. When,
Just-
when it enters the battlefield, target player's life total becomes 10. That's
don't
mean.
like
What is that?
that.
Soren on a Sphinx? Yeah, Soren on a
Yes,
Sphinx.
it's a Sphinx that's Soren.
That's Soren?
That was bad.
That was amazing.
I
Bravo.
want to be known that like this is a pretty crappy card because you can very early do this, and it's kind of painful. But I will have it be said, I think Brian was playing a game with Dan and his brother, and I did save Dan's life with this card because he was at like 3, and I brought him back to 10.
A political
So
card. That's amazing.
you can be good guy.
I was very upset with that. I was very
You can be
upset.
good guy necromancer with this card.
Oh, hey, you have Fateful Hour? No, you don't. Here's some life.
Someone want to take this next card?
Sure. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Medome?
Midami?
The
I think it's
ageless.
Midami.
Yeah. 4 white, blue for a flying 4/4 Sphinx. When it deals combat damage to a player, take an extra turn after this one. And then it can't attack during the extra turns.
Oh, that's a shame. Unless you flash him or kill him and bring him in again.
I mean, you
Zach.
shove Helm of the Host on
The only
this.
combo I've seen that I like with
Oh.
this card, not in the color for this deck, it'd be with Ilharg, the Raise Boar, where you could just keep popping it in. And
I think that wasn't that a modern
I
deck for
believe
a minute?
so. What's modern?
Um,
No, what? Modern?
This says everything it needs to say. It can help us close out games. It also can be abused fairly easily. Yeah, it's just
Hopefully
sweet.
someone has
I
an
think I've
Ilharg
had-
in their graveyard, and then you can you could use body double there and get it. Very situational. Probably won't happen. However,
Person walking around with a boar head.
It just the body double just falls over because the head is just way too large. It's too heavy.
Yeah, no, I can see that happening. This one's really cool. I had it played against me, probably one of my first Commander games when I was starting to get into Commander, and I was like, what is this madness? Like, I had no idea, like, how to actually deal with it, because I had no removal in my head, but we got Mirror Sigil Sergeant. It's a Rhino Soldier. Probably, like, best friends with, like, Babar. 5 and a white. And it has trample, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a blue permanent, you may put a token into play that's a copy of Mirror Sigil Sergeant. So then, is this just something like the bug, Scoot Swarm, Scoot Mob,
Mhm.
like
Scoot
where
Swarm.
both of them will trigger at their upkeep?
Yes. So this is a more
I
fair
didn't know
version.
this card existed,
Obviously.
and it's at Mythic. This is my first
Yes,
time ever seeing
from
this
That's
card.
how you know it
Conflux.
exists.
I really like the Alara block. So anytime I can try to sneak in these little like random cards, I really like to. But Mirror Sigil Signet is actually Sergeant is actually really cool because we have a lot of flying, but we don't have a lot of like tramplers or the ability to like ensure a lot of damage. So Mirror Sigil Sergeant just kind of can help us get there, and we have a way to abuse extra upkeeps. So this card can be pretty relevant and get kind of out of hand for us in a more, I guess, reasonable fashion than what green would do.
I take it asking about you mentioning the multiple upkeeps. Are you running that enchantment that allows you to have the 2 upkeeps at the beginning?
I am not.
Okay.
Um,
Had to be
I
asked.
want to. I don't want to sacrifice that enchantment. I want to. There are enchantments I do want to sacrifice, but there's a creature that we're running that we'll get to here shortly that does that. Um, the next card is Auroch Loremage, 2 black human warlock that isn't relevant. It's a 3/3. You can tap it, search your library for a card, put it into the graveyard, then shuffle. If it's an instant or sorcery card, put a +1/+1 counter on Auroch Loremage. This is just a reusable like Entomb essentially.
Check your bulk rare piles
With
from
the-
your Strixhaven box.
Yeah, this card is very, very good. It surprises me that they printed something like this on a creature. But we have obviously we want to throw away creatures, so that's what we're doing. But there is the unburial rights and a couple other lines of play that you can abuse with this card. So it's just good.
Dan would be super happy to see this next card in here.
I'm super happy to see this next card in here.
It is a very good card.
Go for it.
We got Sir Shadrix of Silverquill. Legendary creature, Elder Dragon. He costs
If I
3.
look up the lore and he's not knighted, I'll be very disappointed that you called him Sir.
He's been dubbed.
Yeah, he's the
Oh,
the
he's
head
the one that
honcho.
serves
I'm
people.
I'm
Okay.
giving him that title.
All right.
So he's 3, a white and a black, and it has flying and double strike. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. Target player may create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Or target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Love it. Love it,
Gross.
love it, love it. I'll say it for Dan. He
Card's disgustingly good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love it. It's so much fun. Like I'm on that Silver Quill hype train right now. My favorite deck to play is my precon, and so I just love all of these cards. This like I am now a Silver Quill person.
and it's just good value. That's the big thing. When you're doing reanimator type stuff, you typically want to have creatures that are either you're cheating in because you're playing them for way lower mana cost, or have very good ETBs or LTBs. With this guy, we're getting as long as we do everything during our main phase before we move to combat, we're going to get its ability to trigger. So even though it's not being able to attack that same turn, we still get to buff the team. That's always what we're going to do, unless our hand is super like non-existent. But typically, if you're playing this guy, you're wanting to throw counters on all of your stuff.
And you don't have to choose 2, right? It's a you may choose 2, so you can choose 1 ability.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
It doesn't say
Right.
up to 2.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah. So, but I'm completely fine with giving someone a 2/1. Like, I'm completely fine with that.
Or if you don't want them to have flyers, here you can draw a card and lose a life.
So the next card is what I was talking about earlier with abusing our additional upkeep. It's Sphinx of the Second Sun. It's 6 blue for a 6/6 Sphinx. It has flying. Then at the beginning of your post combat main phase, you get an additional beginning phase after this. So we get our untap, our upkeep, our draw, but we immediately have to end the turn.
For you
after
telling me
we
that
don't get to.
sphinxes are not relevant, I do see a lot of them in your creatures here.
Surprisingly, the biggest blue beaters are all sphinxes.
Or
Who would know?
sphinxi? Sphinx? Is that like dice? Die?
I think you're
Yeah,
probably
okay.
right, but I'm correct with that, right, Lotus? That we get all that, then we have to go straight to our end phase, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No. At the
s-
beginning of your post-combat main phase, you get an additional beginning phase. Then you move to the end of turn. So then you
Right.
go to end of turn cleanup.
So we're really using this to basically untap Ertai, untap our lands, just be able to be on the offensive and defensive as much as possible. Sphinx of the Second Sun is a very good card, and I don't think enough people are playing it. So if I can ruin someone's day with this card to inform them, that's what I want to do.
Thanks, Zach.
I really think that Unesh
The more
should be
you
in
know.
this. The more and more I go down this road.
The next card is a throwback to when I first started playing Legacy. I was actually playing Esper Reanimator, and I bought many boxes of the Grave Pack um, s- premium deck, or sorry, Graveborn premium deck. So that's Sphinx of the Steel Wind. It's 5 white, blue, black for a 6/6 Sphinx, artifact creature Sphinx. It has flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink, and it's pro red and green.
This guy's such an expensive card. Like, not price-wise, but just CMC or converted mana value. Or mana value?
Mana value,
Converted
yeah.
mana
Mana
value.
value.
That would be like the
Mhm.
the two worlds coming together, shaking hands. Converted mana value.
But it's like, but in the, like, I wouldn't say old days, but in older days, like before Grizzlebrand was like the go-to reanimator strategy, it was like playing stuff like this and the white black angel that would blow stuff up, and filigree, not filigree familiar, but filigree angel, I think what it was. So it was like turn 1 you entomb, turn 2 you exhume. This is what you get. And then they threw Iona in it, and it was just, that was the deck. But this card is really sweet though. Like, a 6/6 for 8 or whatever is pretty rough, but even still, it's so much, like, there's so much value, and the pro red green, like, it being having protection from those colors is really relevant. Like, let's see you flash out your reach incarnation elemental guy and block this. You can't.
You can't.
Right. With that being said, someone want to take the next card?
So Stronghold Overseer, 3 black, black, black for a flying 5/5 demon with Shadow. And for double black, creatures with Shadow get +1/+0 until end of turn, and creatures without Shadow get -1/-0 to end of turn.
I don't even know what I'm looking at with this art.
It's a big
It's an
demon.
overseer.
Like, what's on the left-hand side of the art? Is that a wing or like the start of an arm? Like, is he armless or is that just his shoulder thing?
Well,
never
you
mind.
you know what?
I'm
We'll
done.
go and we'll try to find Puddinhead, and we'll ask him. Puddinhead. I didn't know that was an
Well-
artist for Magic the Gathering. Puddinhead. Okay.
I think it's a really sweet card. Shadow is just not a lot of people play Shadow, so you're almost getting in every time. Granted, you can't block, but also the relevant like anti-anthem is very, very important because there are token decks everywhere. So being able to shut those like, I'm swinging for game. Like, nah, no, you're not.
Well, and I
is,
think like on other episodes as well, Lotus has mentioned that Shadow, she enjoys Shadow and wants more Shadow. Like I think
Yep.
that's what I flashed back to and pointed over to her. I was like, pretty sure like we're all looking for that Shadow Commander.
well, Lotus, I'm throwing shade at you, bud. Someone want to take the next card?
I've never seen this, and it's Vela the Nightclad. It's 4 in a blue and a black. Legendary creature, human wizard, obviously not relevant. Has Intimidate,
I
and
had to
then
get
other
one more.
creatures you have has Intimidate. No, he didn't want to get that one. And then whenever Vela the Nightclad or another creature you control leaves the
Battlefield.
battlefield, each opponent loses one
Now I'm just trying to throw you off.
life.
I'm not doing any kind of loops. This is mainly just it's a great anthem, and since we are, doing the reanimation stuff and sacrificing creatures and all that things, Vela just gives us more value. So
Well, and it only depends, like, if there's creatures of the same color out, or if someone's actually playing artifact creatures that you can get through. It's just another way of helping get through to the opponent.
right. And with having the kind of reanimation spells we have, if anything, if someone has all of our colors, but someone else is playing green, we can steal someone else's creature, get through, and do bunches of silly things. Utility,
Everybody likes utility.
Next card is Vishkal, Blood Arbiter, 4 white, black, black for a legendary creature vampire, 5/5, flying lifelink. You can sack a creature to put X +1/+1 counters on Vishkal, where X is a sacrifice creature's power. Then you can remove all +1/+1 counters from Vishkal. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each +1/+1 counter removed this way.
I don't like this. I don't like
It's pretty good.
-1/-1 counters.
I don't care about indestructibility in this this deck when this guy's out. There's also, like I said, just the ability to give flying lifelink, and the instant speed sacrifice outlet's always important. I never want my stuff exiled. If I can sacrifice a creature to protect it from being exiled, that's what we're going to do. I want it in my grave. Point blank. This guy's sweet.
The next card in this list is Unesh, Cross Sphinx, Sovereign. 4 colorless and 2 blue. Oh wait, no, sorry, it should be in this deck. Legendary creature, Sphinx, relevant. Flying. Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. No, okay, I'll stop there. Anyway, that's not the next card.
That card is not in this deck. That's not. Cut it. Just cut that whole section.
What I think
You've
what
lost
I
the
think Benson was
privilege.
trying to say here is that the next card that we have is Vizier
Oh
of Many
yeah,
Faces.
that's it.
So it's 2 and 2 blue, the Shapeshifter Cleric, so something Zach enjoys again. You may have a Vizier of Many Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except if Vizier of Many Faces was embalmed. The token has no mana cost. It's white.
It's a white.
It's a white. So we're into Game of Thrones now. We're throwing that creature type in here. And it's a zombie in addition to its other types. And then the embalm cost is 3 and 2 blue. So just one more, which again is not bad. If you're already paying for 4, typically next turn, if it dies, you can bring it back again.
Good card. I'm not really going to talk about it.
So
This card, though,
yeah, I
am
know
gonna
if Dan
talk
was
about.
here, he would be like, "I'm talking about this one." But
Well,
Zach, please.
he's not here, so suck it, Dan. We're playing Untitled Cryptic Sovereign. It's 2 white, blue, black for a legendary Sphinx 3/5 flying vigilance Menace. Whenever Untitled Cryptic Sovereign attacks, reveal a top card of your library. If that card's mana value is odd, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, draw a card.
I made a deck about this one.
You did, and I'm fairly positive I played against it. It was sweet, and I'm pretty sure I lost against it.
It was called Oddly Uneven.
That's an amazing deck name.
So Unet's just doing kind of what we want to do, right? It's doing Reanimator stuff without reanimating because we're just cheating stuff in regardless. It's just a really good creature. The abilities already on it are phenomenal, and being a 3/5 is actually kind of relevant, right? It's a pretty large butt and a decent blocker. Speaking of large butts,
this next
does someone
one,
else want to talk about this?
Terrible reprint, but good in this deck.
This is like the bane of the pre-league right now. Whenever I'm playing,
Primal Dawn, 6 colorless, white. Legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur, not relevant.
Not a Sphinx.
Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. It's a 4/8.
It's a big dumb flappy bird. That's all I got.
I think big is kind of for the size. It's currently hovering over top of a city.
I'd say more like thick. Do you have toughness on that creature?
Yeah,
thick
there we
with 2
go.
Cs. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say that was 4 Cs easily.
Mm.
All right, so those are our just creatures. I'm going to go into interaction. First card we're looking at is Angelic Arbor. It's 5 white for a 5/6 angel flying. Each opponent who casts a spell this turn can't attack with creatures. Each opponent who attacked with creature this turn can't cast spells. So this is interaction in the sense that it's kind of like it's stopping people from doing something regardless.
I don't like this, Zach.
Oh, it's fine. It's
You can cast your one spell that'll counter it.
Look, just don't be mean. All right. That's all. Just don't be mean.
Oh man.
It's interaction. What's wrong with that? Next card's Crush Contraband, 3 and a white for an instant. You choose one or both. Exile target artifact or exile target enchantment. Get your Leyline of the Void, your Ashes of the Abhorrent, Rest in Peace, Golf Diggers, Cage. Just get it all out of here. I don't want it. And you exile it because I really don't want to see it. Someone want to take another card from the Alara block here?
Yeah, sure. Aethersworn Adjudicator. Artifact creature. Veldican Knight. Relevant. Flying. It also has, for a colorless and Orzhov, you give it a tap, taparoo, and you can destroy target creature or enchantment. And then you could also have this other activated ability of 2 colorless and a blue untap. Aethersworn Adjudicator. It's a 4/4.
I don't like you being able to nerf my stuff.
Not Sphinx.
This is relevant for Sphinx and this Sphinx of the Second Sun, and this is relevant for Fate Stitcher. So you constantly being able to utilize the untaps to just kind of keep the board under control because I want to go fast. I don't want you guys to go fast. I want to be big. You guys can't be big.
Easy there, Ricky Bobby.
Lotus, you want to read this card for the class?
Forbid, 1 blue. It's an instant. Buy back, choose and discard 2 cards, but it counters target spell.
I'm throwing gas away so I can gas. I don't know. Gas.
Those guys got
your
some nice
your
boots.
gas is expensive, so it'd probably be cheaper to siphon out of the siphon it out of the tank there.
I don't know. I'm trying to make out what's going on in this card.
I don't know if those are socks. I don't know if those are like.
Is he wearing sandals with socks?
Maybe they're greaves. They look kind of like greaves, right?
Let's go with
I'd like to think that they're Uggs.
They're
This is Daniel in a card then.
Yes, 100. Next card is Mascara Worm, 3 triple black for a 6/5 worm, not relevant. When it ETBs, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 till end of turn, and whenever a creature an opponent control dies, that player loses 2 life. This is just a good reset button, whether it's tokens or we can abuse the fact that it's an ETB, so we can sacrifice it to something and then bring it back and maybe give our, for cheaper, maybe give creatures neg 4, neg 6. I've had this once before where I had to neg 10 someone and I was able to do it. So,
This is another way to kill Daniel.
yes. And sometimes I forget about the bottom layer of text. I'm not gonna lie, I just look at it as like a removal spell, but completely forget like things die and someone's like, you killed me with it. Crap.
Yes, I run into the same thing. I was like, oh, I thought it was just for that one time. He's like, no, it wasn't. Like, my bad.
And then we just got a humble negate, 1 in a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Meh.
Fair.
Why negate? Why not just counterspell?
I don't like double blue if I can avoid it.
Triple, says the guy who just also mentioned a card with triple black in it. I don't know.
Triple
I
black.
don't know if that math checks out.
All right, so I don't have an Urborg actually on my list, but I have an Urborg coming for this deck. So
Okay.
I
triple
mean,
black to me is just colorless.
you're running double blue in Forbid.
But Forbid does more things.
But you're sure.
All right, look, I have a Mystical Archive version of this card, and I think it's sweet, so I'm playing it. And
there we
counters,
go.
the Mystical Archive
There's the
counterspell, I got more monies for. So they go bye-bye. Our ramp is pretty straightforward. The only thing I really want to touch on, I'm running Archaeomancer's map in here because I was lucky enough to get a second one. Archaeomancer's map is 2 in a white. I was gonna say 2 in a blue. God, 2 in a white for an artifact. When it ETBs, you search your library for up to 2 basic playing cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, and then whenever a land ETBs under an opponent's control, that if that player controls more lands than you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So we're just gonna ramp. We're gonna trigger some landfall, whatever. Monologue tax. I don't like playing Smothering Tithe, but Monologue Tax seems fine. So there's that.
And the price point of Smothering Tithe, it's almost up there with that Baghdad card.
What?
Might as well be $4,000.
Everything else is pretty, I think, straightforward. Arcane Signet,
Actually, I think it's
Demir's
only just
Signet,
50 Canadian, but
All the talismans.
all the talismans, everything in our colors, Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, and then Solemn, because we can abuse Solemn pretty easily in this deck to ramp and draw cards. Speaking of drawing cards, we're going to get into our card draw section. The first card at the top of the list is the most expensive card ever printed. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like it. I want to stress again, I have a proxy. Play with proxies, talk with your group. Support people who make proxies. I don't know what to say. But it's Baghdad a Bazaar or Bazaar Baghdad. You tap it, you draw 3 or draw 2, discard 3. It just lets us loot, and I like that. That's why it's in card draw and not a land, because it doesn't actually tap for mana.
Makes sense.
makes sense.
And then we got
Kinda.
Bonded Fetch, which is like a giant eyeball. Great. It's 2 in a blue. It's a homunculus. Defender.
Homunculus.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fun to
Defender
say.
and haste. It is. It is very fun to say.
Homunculus.
And you can tap it to draw a card and then discard a card. And discarding a card in Reanimator's not a bad thing.
I didn't know this card existed. It's quickly became one of my favorite blue ways to draw cards because I really like to loot. So yeah, this
And
card's sweet.
nothing better than a haste defender.
Right.
I did find that weird, but it does allow you to use its ability right
But
away.
you can use the ability, yeah. But it's just funny to see.
It's because
those
it's
two
Time
keywords.
Spiral.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like they did all this weird stuff. Time Spiral was kind of like Modern Horizons 2, but more tame. Does someone want to take this next card?
This is a little champ from Commander Legends. I don't know if it was printed anywhere else, but I just found out about it in Commander Legends. And that uncommon, I still think it's a beast. And that's Demonic Lore. 2 colorless, and a black for an enchantment. And when it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards. That's the upside. The downside, at the beginning of your end step, you lose 2 life for each card in your hand.
Oh, I don't like that. I usually like having a full mitt of cards, but
Well, so with Ertai's ability, we want to sacrifice creatures or enchantments. Most of the creatures I have aren't going to draw you cards, but the enchantments that I'm running will draw you cards. And I want to kind of not be forced, but like, is someone going to remove demonic lore from my field? No. Even with Ertai's ability, like, I don't think people are going to remove like waste removal and demonic lore. So it's almost a guaranteed like counter spell. Am I going to lose some life? Probably, but I also run a lot of creatures that gain me some life. So, you know, and it's drawing 3 for 3, which is it's fine. It's perfectly fine. You can get worse rates than that.
This next card, harder to read because someone has it on their list in foil.
This is a promo that my wife got me for Christmas. So it's
well, you didn't have to put that promo on the Archidekt. Forbidden Alchemy.
You're darn skippy, I did.
2 colorless and a blue. For an instant, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. Ooh, relevant. Mm-hmm. And it's also got flashback for 6 colorless and a black.
I like flashback cards in this type of deck. So we do the thing.
Yeah, it does a thing. It does what your deck wants to do. It's good.
And then we got Frantic Search, which is 2 and a blue. It's an instant, and it's draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. So it's a free spell.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy those ones.
Yeah, I really.
We know you do, Mr. Fierce Guardianship. We know you do.
No. I mean the ones where you actually tap for mana, but then it allows you to untap, so you can mana fix as you will.
I don't see the difference. If you have that mana open, you don't need to fix it.
Baghdad a Bazaar or Bazaar Baghdad isn't needed to make this deck function, but I have had some really fun plays where I frantic search and then did Bazaar again. So it can let you fill your graveyard quickly to meet threshold. It can also just help you to basically arrange your graveyard as needed to kind of do the things you want to do. Once again, proxy that card. Do not purchase that card. Who wants to talk about this next card? I'm sure they've never heard of.
What, Hatching Plans? 1 and a blue enchantment. When it's put into a graveyard from play, draw 3 cards.
So I expect you to know this card, Lotus. I don't know if anyone else will.
No, I have never seen it before.
Nope. I've never hatched any plans.
This is another enchantment that we obviously want to sacrifice to Ertai to counter a spell, but it's also one of those that I think is going to dodge removal fairly easy because who wants to really remove this with something, you know? So it just kind of sits there.
But this next card, though, because I love being a parrot, we got Rhystic Study, and it's a nice foil one. Zach, I'm very jealous.
So this deck's even cheaper, because I didn't know you had a $200 Rhystic Study in this list as well.
Yes,
the Judge promo.
Once again, I got proxies. This was another proxy. I typically do not play Rhystic Study, but in this deck, it was kind of hard to not run this card when I have a beautiful proxied version.
So it's 2 and a blue. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1 colorless.
I'm not going to lie to you. I have played Rhystic Study, let it go around the table once, and then I have Ertai because I got tired of dealing with it. So I'm not attached to this card in this deck. I'll make that very clear. Next card on the list is Thirst for Knowledge. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. You draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. So this kind of just can be what you need it to be. We have a bunch of different artifacts in this deck that we can discard and get back, or we can just draw 3 and discard 2 because we got a lot of gas in our hand and want to reanimate it. Thirst for Meaning does the exact same thing. Same cost, same speed, the difference being that you have to discard an enchantment, otherwise you discard 2 cards. So both are in here. They're sweet.
Yeah. Thirsty. You're thirsty.
I am typically thirsty. I'm very dehydrated.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We had a smidgen of technical difficulties, but we're back, and we gotta talk about this treacherous blessing again.
This treacherous card.
Yeah, it's very treacherous if you don't know what you're doing. But it costs 2 and a black, and it's an enchantment. And when a treacherous blessing enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. And whenever you cast a spell, you lose 1 life. And when treacherous blessing becomes the target of a spell or an ability, you sacrifice it. And I have to say, because Zach likes living dangerously. Got to get that Austin Powers quote in there.
Sure. It's just a good card, right? Like, so you're paying 3 for 3, and typically, like I've mentioned on a couple of these different artifacts that enchantments, no one's going to want to remove this. No one's going to waste removal spells. So as long as Ertai's out, it's almost a guaranteed counter spell for us, right?
1 counter spell.
And
Oh
and it's just a sweet
Lanta.
card. Like, I think it was super unique, right? Like it didn't have a lot of homes, and I wanted to find a way to make it work, and I felt this was one of the decks to make it work. That and Greven. Greven also really likes this card, but it's a
Well,
different deck for a different day.
Yeah, and like even like one of this one would be one that Dan would have recommended for my Gwen deck or my Jen deck. Like it's bad, but you're just getting rid of it, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I really, really want to constantly use everything to its fullest. So this is a good sacrifice target. It's not something I'm going to want to hold on to, and it's something that's less likely to be removed.
True dat.
So that does it for our card draw. The last section we're really going to talk about is my utility section. And the first card we're going to talk about is one of my favorite cards to play in black, and that's Buried Alive. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery. You search your library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Yeah, this just gets us what we need when we want it.
This is exactly what I use in my Reanimator deck, except I would be running 3 copies of it or 4 copies of it, and be grabbing Ray the Dawnbringer and whatever other creatures I needed to make my deck go brr.
Yeah. Cauldron of Souls is next up on the list. It's a 5-drop artifact. You can tap it. You choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gain persist until end of turn. So this is kind of a fun artifact. So we can rebuy a lot of our ETBs or LTBs, for example. But also, if we have a creature we really just do not want to get rid of, like in a meaningful way, we can Cauldron of Souls those creatures and sacrifice it to counter a spell that's maybe going to ruin our day. It's also just good protection against a board wipe. People are going to see what you're doing, and they're going to want to get rid of your creatures. As long as they don't get exiled, you're fine.
So I've never seen this next card.
I'm so glad you're running it.
I didn't know that they had Mr. Freeze's like incubation chamber and like in a magic card here. So we got Chamber of Manipulation, and it's 2 and 2 blue. Talk about not wanting 2 blue. Enchantland. Enchantland has tap to discard a card from your hand. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. I don't like this, Zach.
Lotus,
All
why
right.
were you happy that this is in his deck?
I've got one, and I've been trying to find a deck for it, and it's nice to see it has a home.
It's super, super sweet in this deck. So, enchanting the lands, whatever. But being able, not only does it let us discard a card, which is fine. It means I get to take something from my hand and play it for less mana, essentially. But also, I get to steal someone's creature, which I love to do. I can smack them with it. But the big thing is, I'm just going to sacrifice it. They're not getting it back. Like, I'm just sacrificing it. Because it's a tap, sacrifice a creature, or enchantment, period. So,
I was going to tell you that you were mean, but then I also just built a Tvesh deck, so I got nothing.
so like, worst case, we're just
I feel like me
sacrificing.
and Lotus are like just like in a group of degenerates.
I mean, I build Gorm the Master Chef and squirrels. I'm not like these others.
All right, I want to point this out.
I want to exclude myself from that.
So, Brian plays Humility,
No.
and
Time
Lotus has literally killed me with creatures so many times that I can't count. You've killed me with angels. You've killed me with my own creatures. You've killed me with creatures that I couldn't block because they were like 1/1s. um, you've done something else. Oh, you've also killed me with your one Demir hit counter.
Atrata.
Yeah, you've attrotted me. Like we are all bad people. I do this because you guys have made me this way. Next card, Entomb. Probably the best black card ever printed. It's 1 black instant. Search your library for a card, put it into the graveyard, then shuffle your library. It says a card, so this can get us, our cards with flashback. This can get us our creatures that we want to throw away. Like this, Entomb does a lot of different utility things. Mainly, we're just going to put creatures in the graveyard to reanimate.
I don't think I can take this one from you, Zach. I think you have to read this one.
All right, so Entomb might be the best black card ever printed, but my favorite black card ever printed is Phyrexian Reclamation. I put it in every one of my black decks. You guys should know this song by
It's
now.
like
But
Frank's Red Hot.
right, you guys should know this song by now. But if you don't, the tune is like this: it's 1 black for an enchantment. You pay 1 in a black and 2 life. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It's good. It's real good.
I love how you've got reconnaissance.
Yeah, Lotus.
I'm not sure how you are using it in this deck, but it's 1 white for an enchantment, and you can pay 0 and remove an attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. So you can give things pseudo vigilance, because at the end of combat, after you've dealt damage, there's an end of combat step that you can still activate this and then untap, remove from combat. They still keep the damage they've done. So, are you using it for pseudo vigilance? Is there any attack triggers? It's pseudo vigilance.
It's pseudo vigilance, and it's an enchantment. Worst case, I can sacrifice it to counter something, but ideally, I just want to give all my big beaters like pseudo vigilance because let's be honest, I'm going to be smacking people. Like someone's getting blacked, and they're not going to be happy about it. So I need the blockers.
And then just next, we got some fancy boots. We got the Swiftfoots.
You got the booties.
Yeah, and then I guess the next. The next mentionable card.
Esper doesn't do haste quickly, so.
Oh, except that defender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from Time Spiral. Doesn't count.
So the next card I'm trying to get to here is the 1,000-year elixir. Costs 3, and you may so it's an artifact, and you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. 1 and tap it, untap target creature. It's just another way of doing your guy and countering everybody's spell.
Tap, taparoo.
I mean, there's that. There's a Dark Art Valkyrie. There's Aethersworn Adjudicator. I thought there was one more. Oh, Auroch Loremage. So just being able to get those abilities, even Fate Stitcher, being able to get those tap abilities going pretty quickly, like it benefits our commander the most. But we have enough utility creatures that want to tap to do things. Giving them instant speed ability to do so is very good for us. That's the deck. Our lands are pretty like what I would consider straightforward. I'm not running anything crazy outside of the Bazaar. Like that's the only land I feel like that is really worth talking about. There's just a lot of like maybe Port of Carfill could be discussed if you don't know what it does. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a blue, and you can pay 3 blue, black, black. You can tap and sacrifice it, mill 4 cards, and return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, I haven't seen that land before. I don't think I've actually read it, or I might have one because it's uncommon. But yeah, I was taking a look at your lands, and I was like, wow, Zach actually has no utility in here.
Yeah, like there are some lands that you could definitely use, like Urborg, and you could use maybe even Glacial, Thawing Glaciers and stuff like that. But I just was pretty straightforward. I think I just wanted colors. That was it. So that is my Ertai the Corrupted Reanimator deck. I think this deck scales about mid-tier, which is typically where I like to stay. There aren't any infinite combos that I'm aware of. I don't feel like this deck is too oppressive. There are some oppressive cards, but for the most part, it's just like I feel like we can sit down and have like just a fun casual game of Commander with this deck. You can push this deck, I think, into a bunch of like higher tiers by putting more things in the shell that I don't want to play. But like I'm sure an Elish Norn can slot in this very well and hurt people's feelings and and other things like that. Those just weren't creatures that I wanted to play with necessarily.
Or Ginger Texas.
Yes, Jink attacks easily go in this deck and hurt people's feelings, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to steal people's stuff, but like, how mad can you really be if I play Chamber of Manipulation and steal someone's thing? Like,
Very.
well, maybe for you, but like, if someone did that to me, I'd be like, oh crap, let me take a picture of that card because that card's sweet. I've never heard about it before.
No, and I have never seen that card before, but it reminds me of Mr. The Frost guy from Batman. I'm not the biggest DC fan.
Mr.
but-
Freeze.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze, that one.
Mr.
Yeah,
Frost.
to be fair, I think his last name is Frost or something like that. It's like his wife's.
You know what killed the dinosaurs? The big freeze. This deck suffers from a couple different things. Obviously, we don't have.
Let's save that. Let's save that for our the Patreon episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well,
I guess Benson, how about you? You tell our listeners where they can find the rest of our stuff, and then we'll head into our Patreon exclusive episode.
After hours with Into the 99.
Well, you can find all our other content on intothe99.com. We have a website. Yeah, crazy. You can find links to all of our episodes as well as articles from our Into the 99 team. And I believe there's also a link to a merch store, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't just have to get into the 99, you can wear it.
I love that tagline. I have to say, I do.
Yeah,
I do quite
very
enjoy
good.
it.
That's very good.
And lastly, I'd like to again, Jim or Pyrexia, and we got Magic in that beard, and Josh, great patrons. If you want to join the community, check it out. We have some great tiers there with lots to offer, as well. Like Benson mentioned, the merch store. If you don't get into the 99, wear it. We're coming out with more merch per show. So if you like Parallel Thoughts or you like Brewing It Live, or Lotus just in general, we have her logo on some merch. So you help support each individual show and the overall Into the 99.
And we're working out a better system here. It's been a little rusty, but just so that people know it's still active, we have Flip It and Rip It. I'm going to make sure I hold true to that. I don't know what rare that was. That was just into the pile. I'll find out. I'm going to find out if I'm going to cry or not. Right after, in between ending this episode and our Patreon episode, I'm going to find out if it's going to be a sad moment or not.
Let's find that out right now. Thank you very much, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Hey.